Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine, Content Specialist for the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship, which is part of the School of Politics, Security, and International Affairs at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. Welcome to our Middle School Civics Highlights series. Today we focus our attention on benchmark CG.3.12, compare the U.S. and Florida constitutions. In Part 2, we focus on amending the U.S. and Florida constitutions and recognizing the supremacy of the federal government over the state governments. In Benchmark Clarification 3, we focus on comparing the amendment process of the U.S. and Florida constitutions, while in Benchmark Clarification 4, we focus on recognizing the U.S. Constitution as the supreme law of the land. What are the processes of amending the U.S. and Florida constitutions? What is the basis for the U.S. Constitution as the supreme law of the land? These are very important questions that we explore here. We'll now focus our attention on amending the United States Constitution. The U.S. Constitution requires that there be both a proposal and a ratification in order for amendment to be added to the U.S. Constitution. Now, there have been 27 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Of those 27 amendments, 26 were proposed by the first method that you see on the screen. That is, that 2/3 of each House of Congress proposed those amendments. Now, there have been over 11,000 proposals or introductions of possible proposals over the years, but only 27 have been added to the U.S. Constitution. And having this high percentage requirement, 2/3, just to propose an amendment requires that you'd have bipartisan support or support from the members of both political parties in each House of Congress. You also have support from both the House and the Senate. And this means that there is a widespread viewpoint that this amendment should be added to the U.S. Constitution. We often use the phrase consensus to talk about widespread agreement. However, the U.S. Constitution also provides that 2/3 of the state legislatures or conventions of the state legislatures may also propose amendments to the U.S. Constitution. There has been just one amendment that was proposed using a method other than both houses of Congress providing at least 2/3 of their support. But proposing an amendment to the Constitution doesn't guarantee its ratification. The ratification process focuses solely on the state legislatures. 3/4 of the state legislatures or conventions of the state legislatures have the power to ratify. And each state can determine what it means to ratify a federal amendment to the U.S. Constitution. For example, one state might require that at least half of that state legislature approve, and then that state is considered approved. Another state might want a higher percentage of the vote from within the state legislature, such as 2/3 or 60%, in order to then report to the federal government that indeed that state legislature has approved of this proposal. So what this means is that 3/4 of the state legislatures have the power to ratify, but within each state legislature, the U.S. Constitution is silent on what each state legislature must do in order to demonstrate that they support ratification of a particular amendment. Now we look at the Florida Constitution. The Florida Constitution can be proposed in 5 different ways, but is only ratified in one way. So already we see some interesting comparisons here, that when it came to proposing an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, there were 3 ways. 2/3 of each House of Congress, 2/3 of the state legislatures, 2/3 of state at a state convention where every state is represented. Here we have 5 methods, and these are 5 very different methods. For example, there could be a constitutional convention called. There could be a ballot initiative process. What this means is that voters collect enough signatures from other voters across the state. And if they have enough signatures, they can then have this ballot measure placed for the public, the voting public, to decide whether or not that amendment should be added to the state constitution. So a ballot initiative process is a form of a petition. The petition goes in the form of supporting a proposal for an amendment. A constitutional revision commission, which meets very infrequently, every 20 years. They might also suggest some amendments that are then placed on the ballot. The legislature itself can propose. They can propose an amendment. So think about that from a strategic perspective. Imagine if there are members of a state legislature who want there to be more money coming into the state, and they want to see a tax increase or some type of a policy that would mandate that the Constitution include some type of tax, like an income tax. Florida doesn't have an income tax. But imagine if there were members of the legislature who thought that Florida should have an income tax. But they might also believe that they might not win re-election in the next election cycle if they support amending the state constitution in a way that would add an income tax. So what better way to do this than to put it out to the voters? So rather than writing a law that requires a state income tax, members of the legislature might write an amendment that then goes out to the voters. So if the voters say yes, but not the legislature only proposed it, then that's a way for them to sort of have the benefit of getting a policy passed without getting punished by some voters for that same policy. And then also there is a Taxation and Budget Reform Commission that doesn't meet that frequently, and they can also propose amendments to the state constitution. Ultimately, though, at least 60% of the voters must respond yes on a ballot. So there's only one way to ratify an amendment to the state constitution, even though there are 5 ways to introduce an amendment to the state constitution. So this is very different, because when it comes to ratifying a federal amendment, the voters have no say in that process except indirectly to elect who does get a vote. Here, the voters themselves have the power. It's solely in their hands to amend the state constitution based on what is proposed to them. Next, we look at the concept of federal supremacy. Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution contains the Supremacy Clause, which includes this Constitution and the laws of the U.S., which shall be made, etc. Look at that third line, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound by that concept of supremacy, meaning that the state judges, the state judiciary branch, cannot make decisions on its own. The federal law is supreme. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. What this means is that there is no law above the U.S. Constitution. If a local or state law conflicts with a national law, that local or state law is struck down and the national law remains in place. So there's no evaluating by a court to decide, for example, which law is better. Rather, the federal law is supreme. So if we recall back to the Articles of Confederation and concerns about the need for the U.S. Constitution, one of those areas of need was that there be a strong federal government. And so one of the ways to make the federal government strong is to include a supremacy clause, to include that the federal government is supreme over the state governments, and that promotes national unity and national strength. Thank you for joining me for Middle School Civics Highlights. Do you still have questions? If so, please contact us using the information that appears on the screen. Till next time, I'm Dr. Terry Susan Fine. Thank you for joining me.